All right. The Like I said before, this is a numbers game, and again, how fast you can get to certain income. Again, it depends on you. When I hit my first $1 million, it took me 30 months. But it's interesting because the second million, and I'm talking about my experience before, the second million came about 18 months after. In other words, took faster to get the second one. And the same happened with the third one and the fourth one. And the reason is because uh, the group was getting bigger and there were more leaders, to the point that my team has over 40 people that earn over $1 million. And of course, the income started going much faster. But it depends, like I say, on you. And let me put the screen again. Let me share. Hold on a second. Let me put that slide first again. Okay, let me share. Okay, okay, where is the share? Huh, disappeared for a second. That was weird. All right. Okay, remember the disclaimer that I mentioned before. It depends on you. Now, I'm gonna talk some cool numbers and what happened if the potential. Now, numbers don't lie. When you bring two people and they bring two and they bring two and they bring two, those numbers happen because numbers don't lie. Two plus two is always four, or two times two is four, and four times two is eight. Those numbers never ever change. Now, let me use this. Okay. Actually, let me erase this. Oh, I already have some numbers there. GG. Now, okay, let me use this calculator. I love calculators. First, explain what this calculator is. And this is to show you the potential of what could happen. And again, this is just an example. You see on the corner reads weeks. And the weeks go first 2 weeks, weeks 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12, and 13. 13 weeks is about 90 days. It's why I have it set up this way. Also, the weeks repeat on the left column. First 2 weeks is week 1 and 2, week 3 and 4, 5 and 8, 7, 8, all the way to 13 weeks. On the left side here, I have PIV because the PIV is going to appear, and appear some of the packages that we have, as you see here. Okay, let me erase this for a second. And then the smart ship. All right. Now, this is the CV of the package. This is the PIB, in other words, how much you are earning. And then, of course, the smart ship that doesn't have a PIB. And then on the right side, you see total volume, the amount of people in the smart ship, if I am calculating that, and cycles. And cycles, what I did is divide by 900. I divide that volume for 900. But why even the volume doesn't have to be 1/3, 2/3. You just divided the volume by 900 and it's going to give you the round up cycles that you could have. And then, of course, times 35, because that's the amount of the cycle, the number of PAB, etc. And now let's assume that in the first 2 weeks, and by the way, it's so important to have an action here. And if you want to go fast, you have to connect with more people. You have to connect with at least 10 people a day. Actually, in the training that I did, marginal training I did one Friday, and who was marginal, they used to call him the greatest networker in the world. But he said that if you have a consistency of connecting with 30 new people every day, you're going to have presentations every day, and then you are going to make $1 million in the following year. In other words, you're going to get to $100,000 in a year or less a month. Now, that's a big activity. Not everybody's going to do it, but numbers never lie. If you're connecting with 30 people every day, Monday to Friday, he always was talking 5 days a week. That's 150 people a week. It's an incredible amount of people. But let's assume that, and then from those 30 people, every day that he was prospecting, at the end of the week, every week he was sponsoring a minimum of 10 people a week. He was sponsoring over 40 people a month. But not everybody's going to do that. Let's suppose that in the first 5 weeks, I'm going to throw a number. And by the way, these zeros here, that means this person that's here, that are coming in, they're going to sponsor people here. You see, I not even put it on in the same week, and the first, second week, just they don't do it right away. I'm doing these numbers very conservative. And the people that come in the 3 and 4 week, they are going to sponsor people in the next week, and then in the next week, and then in the next week. And then we are going to have the result, how many people total came into week 13, you see? And then here we have 13 weeks too. But anyway, let's suppose that you, on the first 2 weeks, you say, okay, I'm going to be very strong. I'm going to go strong. I'm going to sponsor at least 5 people in 2 weeks. You say, I'm giving 2 weeks. No, even not even saying, and each one, we are going to calculate that each one, instead duplicating you, sponsoring 5 also, they're going to sponsor only 2. Look the numbers. You have 635 people at the end, because the second week, third and fourth week, this is the amount of people are coming, etc., etc., etc. Now, how much money you can earn on that? I'm going to go to a medium package. That's this one. That's here. You see, it's a $600 package, $599, 300 points. Let me put the 300 points here. And the PIB is $100. Now, you sponsor 5. Now, you see, because you sponsor 5, I did the PIB. The total PIB, I don't know why it's not here. I did something wrong. Okay, let me calculate. Yeah, I'm creating the formula right now. Okay, well, it's just see the PIB is $100. Then you make $500 because you sponsor 5 to get 100 in the first week, on the first 2 weeks. Now, the total volume is this. All the 635 people in 13 weeks. That's about $8,000 a month. Or a week, because it eventually gets a week. But this is what you make on the first 12 weeks, 13 weeks. Now, this is assuming that nothing else happened. But let's suppose that the weeks 3 and 4, instead of going with 5, you're going to go with 3. Look, the numbers start multiplying. The next week, 3 also. The next week, 3 more. Look at those numbers start moving really quick. And let's finish in this week. I'm not going to even do the last week. That's about $17,000 that you make on that. But from that point on, you're going to have those 1,364 people. And from that point on, every month you are getting a minimum of that. The reason I say a minimum, because you don't see in this formula anything about the matching bonus or the SmartShip, although I can do the SmartShip, how much money you earn in the SmartShip. And actually, let's suppose that the SmartShip is 100 points, just to put a point. Gosh, I had the SmartShip unlocked, jumped to $23,000. Now, this, if you say, where the numbers came in? Well, because I made a calculator. This is really, really cool. As you see, this is one of the potential. Now, this is in the first 13 weeks. What happened in the next 13 and the next 13 after a year? Now, again, this is an example, but the example I'm putting is really conservative. I don't have still the matching bonus calculator here. It's a little harder to calculate. I could do it probably to calculating, but it's a little more complex formula that I had to set up, and I may do it. But because, by the way, everything has a formula, as you see here. You see, there are formulas that I created there. For those of you that know how to work Excel or numbers, you know how this works. But most people don't know yet how to work formulas. It's like this, you see, the formula is highlighting all this because there is a formula that's covering all this. That's cool. In case you are saying, where those numbers are coming from? The cycles, you see, they're coming from these numbers. It's just formula. The PIB, where coming the PIB? Yeah, it's coming from here. You see the highlight, the blue. Now, you don't have to learn how to create a formula. The formula is created already anyway. You just fill the numbers. But you see the power of this system. Now, that's why when we say if somebody come fast, they are going to go faster. Because if somebody come in the first 2 weeks, they sponsor 10 people. Just look the numbers, and even if you go down to, again, I'm gonna 3 and 3 and 3 and 3 and 3 Look, it's over $33,000. That's the power of the numbers. And the speed when you get to the other income, obviously, depend on the speed that you are going and your team is going. Now, you're going to have leaders that they're going to sponsor way more than 10 people, like 10 or 20, who knows? But again, everything is calculated that every person that you're sponsoring is sponsoring only two and they're sponsoring two. Okay, let me get out of here. Any questions?
No, this is excellent.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, numbers don't lie. And I have so many calculators that I created because you saw only two, the one that matching bonus and the one last one. But I always am playing them with numbers calculators, some things that are super typical nerd, very nerdy because they calculate everything. But I like to look at the potential of everything. And here you can see the potential of this business. And the cool thing that it's hard to calculate in plans that are not like ours because in the other plans you have so many limitations. For example, in the company that some of you came on before, you had to have X amount of directors to go certain deep, and then the volumes vary, change, and it's harder to calculate the potential. You can have a kind of rule of thumb, but it's harder because in our plan it's easier to calculate because it's only building two legs. That's it. And then the PIB, that's what can be clearer than that. And I didn't calculate the matching bonus. That's very clear to us. It's just a matching on what your people are earning. And it's, in other words, our plan is simple to create a calculator like the one that I did. And I, like I said, I may add one just for the matching bonus I actually have a calculator for the matching bonus that I do for my projection matching, and probably I can add it inside the one that I just show eventually. But do you see the number? It's kind of dumb, but I have fun with numbers. I have a when I was in high school and when I discovered my love for numbers, and it's interesting because it was not in the math class, it was in the physics class. I have an amazing teacher in physics, and he said one time that if we know the numbers, we can find the secrets to almost everything in the universe. And that kind of got stuck in my mind because they use numbers in physics, they use formulas, etc., but they are based on numbers. And that's when I got more curious about math. And interesting because there's a book that we have for math problems, and we're like crosswords for math, and only nerds were using it, or they recommended it in high school for us to get better on math. And I was doing that all the time like if it was a game, like a crossword or something like that. Because I love the numbers. I love when everything start appearing, the possibilities, the potential. And the cool thing is that especially simplicity, simple numbers. Because although I have formulas to create the numbers in general are simple because you get 30% matching on what people are earning. That's simple. You get PIVs when you X amount of PIV when you get somebody. It's simple. You sell something, you get 25%. It's simple. Guys, every time you have 300, 600, you get a cycle. It's simple. It's a lot of numbers, but it's simple at the same time. And I love that. Uh, okay. Yeah, by the way, yeah, some people are asking, can you share your name? Yep, it's George of the Jungle, George Race. Yeah, I've been in the industry and this profession since 1992. I have an accent because we have products with sexy ingredients, and it's why my accent came up now. It came from South America. And I was in the business. Actually, I was in investment and real estate business before I found this. Then there was a real estate crash in the early 90s, probably was late 80s in Florida, and everything's going bananas. That's when I discovered this business. And the reason I fell in love with the business when I saw the numbers. The video that I would say, first of all, I found the business because when I read an article in Success Magazine was talking about the business of the future, they were talking about this kind of business. And one of the things that Richard Paul, who was the one that wrote that article, said that was the investment was low because income has disappeared. Basically, I said, "Whoa, this is my business." I eventually found one, but anyway, and at first I didn't do well. Actually, my first year was an epic failure. Almost everybody that I have at the beginning quit. Almost everybody that came at the same time, there were other teams, they quit too. But I stayed in there because I knew this was going to work, because I was thinking if it's working for somebody, it's going to work for me. But the second part, the most important, were the numbers. I knew numbers eventually were going to start working in my favor as long as I kept activity, as long as I kept talking to people. Mark Barrett, that's not the same Mark Channel. Mark Barrett video, don't remember the name of the video, was an hour video talking about the power of the numbers in the pay plan of the company I came in before. And was talking about how you bring 5 people and they bring 525 and then bring 125 and then 625 all the way to 70 something thousand people. And if you get only 10% of that, you are going to be financially free forever. And I knew that the numbers eventually were going to work. Although in that company didn't work exactly that way because it was a breakaway all pay plan, like other companies like Herbalife, Mary Kay, Amway, etc. But the numbers in general still are going to work in the amount of people that are coming in. And that's why I was fascinated. And it's why as soon as I know how this business works, because I didn't know how to. My upline didn't know that either because he was new. I was his first distributor ever. And he didn't speak English. I speak Spanish, but I didn't speak Chinese. He was from China. He was from Shanghai. Or he's from Shanghai. He's still alive. And he was in the US for a very short time. He was living in Hawaii. By the way, it's a good place to go. For the first time in the U.S., I was living in Florida at the time. We were in opposite coast. We have like, I don't know, 6 hours different or something like that. But the two of us basically grew up together in the business. We were helping each other. And when we found books, we started following the books. And the first book that I got, the first two was Don't Fail, How to Build an MLM Machine. And that still is around, although the name changed. I'm trying to remember the name. And then the other book was How to Be the Best That You Can Be an MLM. That book never was reprinted. The guy that wrote that book, he died like 15 years ago. But anyway, and those were the two books that I used to build my business. We created a whole plan based on those books, and they are eventually got simpler and simpler and simpler because simplify it, because I love simplicity. And that's when my business started growing very fast in that first company. Sadly, the company filed eventually went to bankruptcy. That was and of course I had to look for another company. But I have a team of interesting. My first 12 months was a failure. The following 6 months, I had like 8,000 people because I learned how to do the business and I was finding the right people. I learned not to talk so much because I was talking so much about everything. I was talking too much about the products and people were saying, gee, you have to know all those ingredients. And it's when I learned use the tools. And don't be a fool, use the tools. And it's why we have so many great tools in this business because tools work. And tools mean you have videos in your website, you have the PDF files, you have the app, you have so many cool things that help you. And eventually I went into another company, I did very well, and I got to around probably about 50,000 people, but eventually they start making so many changes that I went to another company where one of my team members left the year before. He called me for almost a year. Eventually went to another company, and that's where our volumes even exploded more. We went from to close to or maybe over 1 million people, but with volumes of several $1 million every week. And the reason is because I keep applying a principle, very important, consistency and persistency. Because when you apply those principles, numbers work in your favor. And it's why in the company before that one, in 7 years, I was making a multiple 6-figure income, but took me 7 years. Well, in the following company, it took me 30 months to hit the first $1 million because I already understood how the numbers work. And when you understand the numbers and you are consistent, things are going to change in your favor. Now, it doesn't have to be $1 million a year, but could be depend on your goals. But it start small. I mean, the first $50, the first $100, 200, and with consistency, you start doing that, and you help other people to start making money. Then your income start going up too, because more volume comes in. Plus, on top of that, you have also the matching bonus, and you are getting those commissions. It's why it's a Powerful, powerful, powerful way to build the business. Yeah, people buy the dream first. That's true because, and I like to use a word, this, if time and money were not a challenge, and you have all the energy to enjoy it, what would you do? The reason I asked that question, because that question was asked to me many, many, many years ago. I'm talking about at least 25 years ago. And even that I already have started in the business, and I said, geez, I'm doing enough. I'm doing the things to reach my goal. What I'm doing now is going to get me there, because they asked me, if time and money were not a challenge, you have to, what would you do? I was telling all my dreams. And then the next question was, doing what you are doing now, how long will it take you to do that? And that's when I start questioning, is I not putting enough energy. I not learning enough, because this is a professional. It's simple, by the way. It's very simple. But if we think that it's going to happen by itself, it's not. It's still, we have to put it our side. And that, and when he said, doing what you're doing now, how long will it take you to do that? I say, shoot, it's going to take me forever. And that's when, and then the next question that he asked, how that make you feel? Of course, I feeling like a rotten egg. When he said that, gee, I had to do more. Or I had to do the right things. I had to learn the right things, because it's not as much more time putting on the business. It's just doing the right thing, duplication, because it's not really more time. Because there are people that have put much more time in the business than me, but they never make their money because they are just doing the wrong things, like, or just selling. And yes, you can make money selling, but you're stuck. You're not creating that duplication. You're talking too much about the products. No, you had to find people that are building also, that they are going to think and building a business, building a team. I mean, or we talk too much. The idea is to do the right questions, to ourselves even. Doing what I'm doing now, how long will it take me to reach my goals? How that make me feel? If I can do the right things consistently, would I do them to reach my goals? And definitely it's going to happen. By the way, that question works in any business. Doesn't matter if you are a brick and mortar business, or you are selling, I don't know, airplanes. The same thing apply. But the cool thing applied to our business is very simple. Very simple. Simplicity. And I think I mentioned to you many times, this simplicity is the latest sophistication. And I didn't come up with that. A person super smart came up with that. He was Leonardo da Vinci. It was hundreds of years ago. And it's funny because he was an inventor, he was an artist, he was a philosopher, he was all that together. But he said simplicity is the latest sophistication. That's so cool. Leonardo da Vinci. Think about that. But anyway, keep the business simple. Work with your upline leader, because he or she, even if he's new, is going to connect you to the right information. And because the best way to go to the top is to go to the top as a leader, as a team. Anyway, gee, I thank you for asking that question. Anybody wants to say something before? Let me see if I can find something that somebody said. But meanwhile, any comments? By the way, Kimberly, you were a national sales director in a one of the older companies in network marketing, biggest companies. What do you think? Why you are so excited about what you have seen here? I know I put you on the stop. Sorry.
Hi, George. I have been working with a lot of people and talking like for 3 days straight. So my voice is not very good right now, but I just love everything about 3. And just the fact that everybody who's out of Mary Kay is here is a huge thing, knowing that what we have had before, everything that you said, how we will not get paid on other team members and different things like that if somebody makes more than us or raises higher. And I really love that about this business, because we just cheer our team members on no matter what they're doing, how great they're doing. Nobody ever holds anybody back. And the sky is truly the limit. I mean, you're truly building a legacy forever. Unlike the other company, you just, I don't know, when you're a national sales director, they make you retire. And sure, you get a little something afterwards, but this is something that you're building like forever. It's just so exciting. Every single day I wake up, I can't wait to talk to somebody.
You know that it's something that I don't understand why they force you to retire. The guy that sponsored me in that other company, he was 75 when he sponsored me. He was coming out of a bankruptcy. That means that he would be retired. He was beyond the age of retiring the company you were before already. I don't get it. I don't get it why. And not only that, from 75 to now, he's 98 right now. He hit 98 in March. He still is working the business. He and his family, he has earned over $100 million. It doesn't matter the age that you start. And he was coming out of a bankruptcy. Think about that. I'm going to share something really quick, although I don't know if it's cute in that part. I'm going to stop the live stream because I don't know if this is copyrighted.